Every mountain in your life right now, the debt, the diagnosis, the relationship that feels beyond repair, has a weight you've measured. You've calculated exactly how impossible it feels. You've built a case for why it can't move. And that case, that airtight argument you carry in your chest, is the only thing holding it in place. There's a line in scripture that most people read as poetry. Faith the size of a mustard seed can move mountains. Centuries of repetition turned it into a greeting card. A nice thought, something you nod at and forget. But what if it's the most precise instruction ever given about how your inner world actually operates? The mustard seed is the smallest seed a first-century listener would have recognized. Yeshua chose it deliberately. He could have said faith the size of a boulder, faith the size of a temple. He went the opposite direction. He pointed to something so small you could lose it between your fingers, and then he attached it to the most dramatic physical result imaginable, a mountain relocating itself into the sea. The gap between those two images is the teaching. Most people fixate on the mountain. They obsess over the size of the problem, the weight of the obstacle, the years of evidence stacked against them. The instruction says to forget the mountain entirely. The mountain is irrelevant. The only variable that matters is the seed. So what is this seed, really? Strip away the stained glass and the organ music. What's being described is a threshold, the minimum amount of genuine inner conviction required to set something in motion that you cannot set in motion through effort alone. Your subconscious mind, the part of you that runs every automatic process from your heartbeat to your self-image, responds to one signal above all others: conviction. A felt sense of reality that bypasses argument. You've experienced this mechanism already, even if you never framed it spiritually. Think about a time you knew something was going to work out, before the evidence arrived, before anyone agreed with you. There was a quiet settling in your body, a cessation of the frantic mental negotiation. You stopped arguing for it. You stopped trying to convince yourself. Something clicked into place like a lock finding its key. And after that click, the outer circumstances began rearranging themselves in ways you couldn't have orchestrated. That click is the mustard seed. The reason most people struggle with faith is they're trying to manufacture a boulder when the instruction calls for a speck. They think belief means emotional intensity, volume. They try to feel it harder, affirm it louder, visualize it longer. And all that effort communicates one thing to the subconscious: you don't actually believe it yet. Effort is the language of doubt wearing a costume. Neville Goddard spent decades teaching this distinction. He called it the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And he was careful with that word feeling. He meant something quieter than emotion, a sense of naturalness, the way you feel about your own name. Nobody has to convince you that your name is your name. You don't affirm it in the mirror. You don't visualize it. The knowing is so settled, so effortless, that it barely registers as a thought at all. That's the texture of the mustard seed. Underwhelming. Almost boring. And that's precisely why it works. Your subconscious mind operates like soil. It accepts whatever you plant with genuine conviction and grows it into form. But it has a filter, a remarkably sophisticated one. It can distinguish between a seed dropped with calm certainty and a seed shoved in with desperate hands. The desperate version gets rejected. The soil knows the difference between planting and performing. This is where the teaching gets uncomfortable. Because if the threshold is that small, truly the size of a mustard seed, then the reason your mountains haven't moved has a sharper edge than you'd like. The obstacle was never the size of the mountain. The obstacle is that you keep digging up the seed to check if it's growing. You plant the assumption, you feel the brief click of knowing, and then an hour later, you look at your bank account. You look at the text that didn't come. You look at the mirror, and in that moment of looking, you uproot the seed and plant a different one. The subconscious doesn't argue. It just grows whatever's in the ground right now. Yeshua said something else that locks this into place. He said, when you pray, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. Notice the tense. Have received, past tense applied to a future desire. That's the architecture of the mustard seed in action. You aren't reaching for something. You've arrived. The mountain moved while you were busy living as though it already had. There's a brutal honesty in this teaching that gets softened in most spiritual circles. If a speck of genuine faith moves mountains, then mountains that remain stationary are diagnostic. They're showing you where your belief hasn't actually settled. where you're still performing conviction instead of resting in it, where the seed keeps getting dug up by your own anxious fingers before it has time to take root. But the flip side carries weight too. If the threshold is genuinely that low, if the universe or God or consciousness or whatever word you use for the organizing intelligence behind reality responds to a speck, then you've been overcomplicating this your entire life. You thought you needed to earn this shift. You thought you needed enough meditation hours, enough affirmations, enough emotional fuel. The instruction says you need a moment. One genuine moment of inner settlement where the new reality feels more natural than the old one. One moment. Not sustained emotional hysteria. A single, quiet shift in where you place your sense of reality. The mustard seed grows into the largest of garden plants. That detail matters. The seed is tiny, but it contains the blueprint for something enormous. Your moment of genuine belief is compressed potential. Everything the subconscious needs to reorganize your self-image, your expectations, your behavioral patterns, your energetic signature, all of it is encoded in that speck of settled knowing. Consider what happens in soil when a seed germinates. The shell cracks, enzymes activate. Chemical signals cascade outward, drawing water and nutrients from the surrounding earth. The seed reorganizes its environment to support its own growth. Your subconscious does the same thing with a genuinely planted belief. It begins selectively filtering your perception. Opportunities you would have overlooked become visible. Conversations shift in tone. Your body language changes without conscious effort. You start making choices that align with the assumption, and those choices compound. The mountain doesn't move because you pushed it. The mountain moves because the ground beneath it shifted. So why does this feel so difficult if the requirement is so small? Because smallness and genuineness are different currencies. A small amount of real gold is worth more than a warehouse of painted rocks. Most people are filling warehouses. They're stacking affirmations, vision boards, scripting journals, painted rocks every one, while the single flake of genuine knowing sits unfound in their pocket. The discipline here looks like surrender. Actually, let me sharpen that. The discipline is surrender. Letting go of the need to manage the outcome, letting go of the timeline, letting go of the frantic monitoring that masquerades as spiritual practice. The mustard seed doesn't need your supervision, it needs your absence. Plant it and walk away. Live as the person who already has what they desire, because that living is the soil condition that lets the seed do what seeds do. There's a practice buried in this teaching that most people miss. Every time you catch yourself checking reality against your desire, checking whether it's working, checking your bank account or your phone or your reflection for evidence, that's the moment to return to the seed, to the settled knowing, to the past tense prayer, have received. Already done. The checking impulse is the hand reaching for the soil. Your only job is to pull that hand back and walk on. The mountains in your life have been standing because you've been staring at them, measuring them, building cases for their permanence. The mustard seed instruction is almost absurdly simple, which is exactly why it gets overlooked. Stop measuring the mountain. Find the smallest genuine feeling of the new reality. So small it barely registers, so quiet it almost feels like nothing, and let it land in the soil of your subconscious without interference. That tiny moment of genuine knowing, that speck most people dismiss because it lacks the drama they expect from transformation, contains the entire blueprint. The seed already knows how to become the tree. Your assumptions already know how to become your life. The only question is whether you'll let the smallest one take root or keep digging it up to plant something louder that was never alive to begin with.